Let's move to baseball, where we had two standout starting pitching performances last night. Shohei hit a leadoff homer, or what's new, and pitched 6 no-hit innings for the Dodgers, but allowed an earned run, so his ERA actually went up to .82. And Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies threw 7 shutout innings for the Phillies, bringing his scoreless streak to a new club record, 44 2/3 innings. So which of these, to you, was more impressive?
Look, I'm going to say Shohei because I think he has a charisma that nobody else has right now. You gave all the statistics that he did. He's the leadoff home run along with the no-hitting. You know, I think it's possible that we are looking at someone who will be judged as the greatest baseball player of all time. And that's not ever going to be said about Sanchez. It's not going to be said. But I don't want to give short shrift to Sanchez here because 44 2/3 innings without an earned run. Shohei doesn't have that. Shohei's best is 32 2/3. Only 6 guys in the history of Major League Baseball have that, and I'm going to read their names. Sal Maglie, Carl Hubble, Zach Greinke, Bob Gibson, Don Drysdale, Oral Hershiser. It's pretty big names. And now I'm going to give you the name of the Philadelphia pitcher whose record Sanchez just broke by getting to 44 2/3. Grover Cleveland Alexander. You ever hear of him? Because he had 373 wins.
11 or something like that.
Sanchez did not allow and will not allow an earned run in the month of May. 39 innings, 45 strikeouts, just three walks, and no earned runs. So, don't think for a second that I don't think that's a great achievement, because it is.
Tony, when you go Drysdale and Gibson, we're talking 1968, by the way. We're talking being inclusive of those men, all-time greats. I'm going to go Shohei. So yesterday, I had the great pleasure of spending some time with Pedro Martinez, speaking of the great, Pedro Martinez. And at one point, Pedro had a ball in his hand, and I was just asking, we were talking about starting pitching. And you know how I am fanatical about it, even more obsessive than you, about what has happened to starting pitching, and you're pretty out there with me. Yep. And I asked Pedro, I said, if somebody came to take you out with a no-hitter, I think I know what would happen. And Pedro had a ball that he had signed in his hand. And he looked at me, and he had a great smile on his face, as only Pedro can do. And he just sort of aimed it like he was aiming it right here between my eyebrows. And that is why I laughed like crazy, because that's what we thought should happen. The Bob Gibsons and the Pedros and the Steve Carltons and the Tom Seavers. Get out of my way, Holmes. But yet, Shohei didn't get to finish it. He threw, he had another home run. That's to be expected. He's the only person in that category. But I know you're not supposed to go longer than 97 pitches. I get it. But, Pedro would have said, get out of here, Skip. Get out of here, because I'll plunk you.
But it's undeniable when you walk through when you walk through Tokyo, and Shohei Ohtani is ubiquitous. He's on every single building, every vending machine, every pharmacy, every product. I mean, I can't think of an apt comparison to him in my entire, I can't think of anybody comparable in my life's experience in Japan. And he's our best player. And then we've got arguably, one of, if not the greatest Yankees of all time in New York, in the biggest market, who's dramatic and interesting because of his, playoff experience and his highs and lows, but he's just so dominant. It's a wonderful story in and of itself. And those two may not be the best two players in the sport, because you have a shortstop in the Midwest that's about as good as a shortstop's ever been in the history of the sport. I could name so many other players, so many other teams and the dynamics. It's a fascinating time in the sport's history.
Well, Joey, maybe, you explain Shohei Ohtani's international impact and world impact. Can you explain what he is able to do on a field? I mean, I'm trying to understand. He's in the Cy Young race right now, clearly, maybe a leader, and what he's been able to do 50-50. I mean, can you summarize what we're looking at here?
Well, I think he'll probably end up, he's at I think he's at 142 WRC plus. So there's a pretty good chance when it's all said and done, he'll be the best hitter in the sport, if not second behind Aaron Judge, which is crazy to think how these guys have been dominant for such a nice stretch of time. As far as what he does on the field, he does everything. He can do anything. He has every tool in the toolbox, and he's also inventing tools. How do you steal 50 bases and then also also hit 50 homers, and then do it in the most dramatic of ways, and just be so poised and so steady with his personality. He's a fantastic teammate. This goes, I think, unappreciated at times, how beloved he is, how excited, you just see on the pan to the bench, Doug, and I think you'll agree with this, but when they pan to the bench after he does something, the two reactions are mostly, I'm witnessing history in a Dodgers uniform. You're Miguel Rojas or you're Will Smith,
Yeah.
and you're in a Dodgers uniform. You're a major league highly accomplished player making real money, and you're like, I'm seeing something. I'm watching history. I'm watching one of the greats. I'm watching Michael Jordan right now. I'm watching, one of the sports greats. But then you're like, he's a good dude. I want to cheer for him because he's on my team, and then you see opponents even they're in awe and they're not feeling. It's not, he's not the sort of guy where, this is complimentary. I love Juan Soto. Juan Soto might be my favorite player in the sport. I love him, but it's because he'll challenge you. He'll challenge you. He'll test you. And that to me is what Shohei Ohtani does not do, what I love about Juan Soto. But even opponents love Shohei Ohtani. And I think that the bases, of course, offensive, pitching, it doesn't stop. But I think the thing that he doesn't get enough credit for is how fantastic of a teammate he is. I mean, he's got everything going for him.
I'd love to have you tell us one Shohei moment from when you were roaming around Japan. Were you in a place where Shohei came up to bat, for example, and then everything stopped?
Interesting you asked that question. So the timing of Dodgers games is approximately 11 o'clock in the morning in Japan. I injured my intercostal, my rib, surfing when I was in Sri Lanka. I was in Sri Lanka for a month surfing, and I flew to Tokyo after, and it was really bothering me. So I had to get physical therapy in Tokyo. So I ended up going 2 or 3 times a week to a local physical therapist just for some treatment. And every day while I was laying on the table, they had the game on, and it was always the Dodgers game. And I always timed it. I didn't intentionally time it, but for some reason the game was on when I was there. And it's not even that. Of course, there's a stopping moment when he's because you only get 4 or 5 at-bats, plate appearances per day. But it's just more like, I don't know. It's almost like it's in the flow of he's done it for so long that the greatness is expected. And watching, I mean, he's, I think at year 8 of his career, I'm almost for sure wrong on that, but he's 31 years old and he's been around for a long time, and he's so great. He's made it mundane. And so while I was laying on the table watching it, I'm like locked in because I think he's must see TV. And they were watching, and they were, casual, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't, but I think it's because he's just so common there. He's just like, you'll turn your shoulder and it's Shohei Ohtani on a billboard, or he's on the product you buy at CVR, so Walgreens there sort of thing, or he's on your rice ball sort of thing. So I think it's almost like they're not tired of, I don't want to speak to their mindset, but it's just, he's everywhere. He's just everywhere, including, in a Dodgers uniform.
Yeah, and then you talk about that greatness, and I know you always had a great admiration for greatness. You know, you said there's hitters that you used to watch when you were playing. Can you give us a sense of what you see, even just mechanically, from Ohtani? Like what stands out that whether you would try to replicate or you're just trying to figure out how this guy does it?
There's only one example of his particular style. I don't think I see very many other offensive players that move like he does. And his head doesn't move. If you were to look from the side, his head doesn't move. And some hitters, their heads go forward and back. You can think Caminero from the Rays or Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Atlanta Braves. And some hitters are fixed. You can think Kurtz from the Athletics or Aaron Judge from the Yankees. But Shohei also doesn't move. But he doesn't take a stride. He does a little toe, like a toe. He gets up on his front toe, and it's like he coils, not just back, but also like down. It's almost like a screwing move back, and then he comes out. But when he comes out of his like loading move, he doesn't lose energy by coming up or coming out. It's almost like he goes back into a reverse ground force sort of screwing move into the ground, and he's able to take all of that. I'm going to get this wrong, but potential energy and turn it into his swing. And I think he's got fantastic balance, and I don't understand how a guy can have the bat straight up and down and far away from him, but then also be able to tip it and deliver it with such accuracy. You know, he does have a bit of a strikeout rate, but I bet you if there was some sort of comparison with like how accurate of a barrel relative to swing length and swing speed, he's probably as efficient as it gets. The fella from the Tigers, I read an article the other day. I think his last name is McGonigal. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I was going to ask you if you've watched him.
He's fantastic, and but he's a smaller guy, and his swing is built to match his physical, his build. But it's like, and he's got excellent contact. But it's like Shohei is that, but 6'4" and 245 pounds or whatever he is, and he runs the best and throws the best. And I don't understand how he does so well against left-handed. I know why he does so well against left-handed pitching, but that's a key to why he's able to get. When I played, I always thought if I could OPS 900 and above, or 1,000, or mostly 900 and above against left-handers, I would be in the conversation for winning a most valuable player. I'd be in the conversation for best offensive player, and that to me is why he's so special. He doesn't struggle with splits. He dominates left-handed pitching because right-handed pitching, you know, as you've seen, he had a bit of a slow start this year, but right-handed pitching is a 1 week good stretch. You know, you match up against a bunch of right-handed pitching, and he homers 9 times in 10 days, and then all of a sudden he's slugging 620, and he's, you know, it happens so quickly against right-handed pitching, and it gets out of hand, right, left, right, especially if you're a power guy, because that's what we were built to dominate. But if you can compete at a really high level against left-handed pitching, I never worried about how I would play as long as I played well against left-handed pitching. And I don't think there's many examples of guys that are typically left dominant that play every single day.